What is going on, everybody? It is the one and only. Well, we'll get to that now in a minute. But here we are with episode 31 of our lovely little Quack experimental podcast. Weird week looking at what we have to talk about. But it's going to be interesting. Of course, I am the one and only Q, your most popular, most famous, known throughout the internet as, well, someone of large repute has once referred to me as Q, baby, you are the number 2 most recognized face in the entire internet. Only second place to the American dream, Dusty Rhodes. But there we have it. Of course, the dream himself has put me at number 2 when it comes to the second most recognizable face on the internet. And here we are. Anyway, I'm exhausted. I'm hurt. I'm in pain. I have returned to the gym. Yikes. That DOMS though, it's fucking rough. Anyway, we got a lot to talk about, so let's go right into it. And of course, it wouldn't be another week if I didn't mention Fallout 76. That's right, Fallout 76. What is it this time? What is going on in the world of Fallout 76? And what can drive this even further down? This time it's class warfare. That's right. Class warfare. Now you might be wondering, how do you have class warfare in an MMO? Well, the less retarded people, the ones who still play Fallout 76 but don't sub to Fallout First, are actively attacking the more retarded player base, the ones that play and do sub to the subscription service Fallout First. So, yes, they're actively going out of their way to band together and attack anyone. And they can do this because there's easily identifiable marks. Basically, there's easily identifiable icons that show up beside a name if a person is a Fallout First sub. Not only that, but there's also some very exclusive armor that can only be gotten through Fallout First. It is the NCR Ranger armor from Fallout New Vegas. Funny enough, not actually developed by Bethesda, but developed by a much better company that makes better Fallout games, Obsidian. Just like look at Fallout New Vegas and The Outer Worlds, the best Fallout game you've probably never played, or at least the best Fallout game, even including the ones made by Bethesda. Even though it's not technically a Fallout game, but you get my point. But anyway, it's just because of this armor and these icons and all, it's a giant bullseye painted right on their back. It's everywhere. And rightfully so. If you ask me, it's Darwinism in gaming in full effect. Because these people are clearly mentally unstable. These people are clearly deficient in some type of brain functions. Because if they're subbing to Fallout First, there's clearly a problem there. And Darwinism can sort these people out anyway. And of course, this is just your ever so quick reminder that when it comes to Fallout First, the paid subscription service for that disaster of a game, well, we have private servers that aren't really private and aren't even fresh. In fact, they can be invaded by anyone on your friends list, no matter what the settings and whatnot. And of course, sometimes when you load up a private server, it's already been used, killed, and looted by someone else. So that's fun. And also, of course, there's the scrap boxes that have been known to remove your items from the game world entirely. All from a paid sub. Enjoy! I don't know about you guys, but I need sustenance. I need to just recharge for 1 second, just before I'm just drained from Fallout 76 at this point. One moment. That's just woo lad. On to our next topic, though. Our next topic is a good one, and it's a hardware-related topic because we have a new NVIDIA Shield TV box that has been announced, or specifically 2 new ones. It's an entire new series with 2 new models. Now, we'll get into the nitty-gritty of them in a minute because it's kind of important to differentiate between the 2 of them. But what are the NVIDIA Shield TV boxes? Well, they've been around for several years and they've undergone 1 refresh, which wasn't even a proper, real refresh if you ask me. And the basic version of it's a small, little, under TV box. It's an Android box. It can do a bunch of stuff. It's Android. You can obviously play your video files through it. Since it's Android, you can do all sorts of basic app store stuff and all too. It can be programmed and coded for. You can download all your apps, do all sorts of crazy stuff with. But overall, for all intents and purposes, it's what you would consider an Android TV box. It even plays a couple of basic games. And despite, funny enough, using the NVIDIA Tegra X1, the non-underclocked version that you would find in the Shield or in the Nintendo Switch, this one actually has a port of Borderlands 2, unlike the Switch. Take that. But anyway, let's look at the two different versions we have here, because there are two different types of the new NVIDIA Shield. There's one for $149 and one for $199 for the Pro model. Now that's important to note, because when you look at the price of these, the Pro model is basically what, the price-wise, is what used to be the old model. The old, better, regular model. So this is important. Now, this one has we'll look at the basic one first. It has an NVIDIA Tegra X1 Plus processor with 256 core GPU. So it is based on the extra improved version, the more efficient one. It's got 2 gigs of memory, 8 gigabyte of storage, which is expandable via micro SD card slots, and has wireless connectivity. Wi-Fi, of course, it's Wi-Fi 5 gigahertz, 802.11 AC, and Bluetooth 5.0. Ports and interface, you're looking at gigabit LAN, HDMI 2.0B, and micro SD card or micro SD slot. It also has Android OS 9, which is Pie. I absolutely hate how Android do their names. I use Android religiously, but I absolutely hate their code names. And I won't get into the dimensions on this too, or the weight. But it is important to note that the basic version of this is like a small cylinder. Think almost like a bottle of a drink. It's a small cylinder like that. Whereas you had the previous model, which was like a small little TV box, which is actually what this next one, the Pro model, looks like. Now we'll get into the whole nitty-gritty of this now in a minute, not just the specs. But when you're looking at the Pro model, it has the same Tegra X1 Plus processor with 256 core GPU. This one has 3 gigabytes of RAM as opposed to 2. It has 16 gigs of internal storage as opposed to 8 gigs. And this one is expandable via 2 USB 3.0 Type A ports instead of micro SD card slot. So that's basically big external hard drive with very, very good USB 3.0 speeds. Wireless connectivity is the same with 5 GHz 802.11c and Bluetooth 5.0. Ports are pretty much identical. It hits the LAN, HDMI, yada yada yada. OS, Android 9.0 Pie, exactly. And this one looks like the regular version of the Shield, the little edgy gamer chic box, if you will. The kind of cool looking one, to be honest. Both of them support 4K 60 FPS output. Both of them also support Dolby Digital HDR and HDR10 standards, as well as Dolby Atmos audio output standards. They also use some type of AI scaling from 720p and 1080p content. So if you're watching, I don't know, a YouTube video or a video playback file or something that's in 720p or 1080p and you're watching it on a 4K TV or a 4K monitor, this will use AI upscaling and all to do that. So I already went over, like, the base version looks like a small cylinder. The Pro one looks like the original regular Shield TV. But why am I talking about this? Well, the big reason I'm talking about these is I've always been fascinated with the NVIDIA Shield, mainly because of what people could do with it, because it's Android. Naturally, Android is properly open source and everyone can pretty much program whatever they want for it properly. Now, the NVIDIA Shield TV, I have been threatening to pull the trigger on for years now about buying one. I've never actually got around to it. I might actually do it now because of these new ones. They are available now and I can easily get one for the Pro model for a decent price. But you may be wondering, Q, why do you need one of these? What's the appeal of one of these for you? What benefit would you get from this that you can do on that you couldn't do on pretty much anything else? Well, the big reason I would want one of these is Dolphin. There's an amazing version of Dolphin programmed specifically for the old version of the NVIDIA Shield TV. So naturally, it would run even better on the new version, probably even more powerful as well because of it. Now, if you're wondering why or what kind of feature set you get out of Dolphin running on this, I'm going to use the version running on the old NVIDIA Shield to give you an example, let alone what could potentially be achieved with this new one. So using Dolphin on the old NVIDIA Shield TV, you could emulate GameCube games in 1080p 60 FPS with proper upscaling, with proper anisotropic filtering, and proper MSAA, up to 8x times, depending on the game and how complex and all it is. And these look gorgeous. You could play GameCube games in 1080p with proper quality settings and proper frame rate. They look gorgeous. It's the same with Wii. The Dolphin emulator also supports the Wii, and you can do the same thing. The Wii is a standard definition console, so you can upscale natively. Well, I suppose it's not really upscaling. You can render them natively in a higher resolution, 1080p, or maybe even with this one 4K, or use the AI upscaling and the AI output for scaling it from 1080p to 4K. And you can do that with all those features on all those Wii games, and you would be surprised just how good many of these games look, especially the Mario and first party games, when you do this. A perfect example is, I know it's not the exact comparison, but if you go onto YouTube, there's a video out there where you can find someone using PSX2, which is it's the PS2 emulator anyway on PC. They're running Final Fantasy 12 at native 1080p, and they're using all the upscaling. I shouldn't call it upscaling. They're using a powerful PC, and remember, this is from about 6 or 7 or 8 years ago, so they're using a powerful PC from back then, and you can see, using Final Fantasy 12 as the example, with this emulator, or at least with the emulator in question, it looks like a 360 game, because it's natively rendered at 1080p, 60 FPS, has all the bells and whistles like the anisotropic filtering with all the extra anti-aliasing. It's all there and they look great. So you can do that with the entire GameCube library and the entire Wii library. And of course, Dolphin backwards compatible with all, well, not just Dolphin, I should say, but of course, there are millions of emulators and all out there. So in theory, you could use the NVIDIA Shield TV as an emulation box. Hook up a maybe 500 gig or 1 terabyte hard drive or whatever it is, all the games you want on there, all the emulators you want, and you're good to go. You have one little tiny box that just has all your emulators on. You just go from there. You don't have to worry about it. Oh, will I buy one of these? I don't know. I've been threatening to buy one for years. Maybe I actually will finally get around to it. I'm going to say this will probably push me to do it down the line. Will that happen? Who knows? Will we actually... Will we do it? Will we get any use to it? Again, who knows? But anyway, we have another interesting topic to talk about in a second. So, next up, we have EA. Electronic Arts. Or so I like to call them Electronic Arts, because, well, electronics and EA and whatnot. Now, many people will champion this as a proud and powerful, loud and proud day. Because EA have announced that they are coming crawling. Linkin Park style crawling. But not in my skin. Back to Steam. That's right. They are joining an exclusive and growing list of publishers and developers who tried and failed to break away from Steam. This list includes prestigious names such as Ubisoft, Microsoft, and Bethesda, and now, of course, EA. So EA Games and EA Access are coming back to Steam. Now, dying here, all this talking. Right now, they're only working on the new Star Wars game, Jedi Fallen Order. It's out in about 2 weeks. It's currently live for pre-order on Steam. So that one is actually on there. Now, they've said over the next few months as well, there will be more games joining, including Sims 4, Unravel, and more will be coming at some point next year as well. Bigger games like Battlefield 5, FIFA 20, and even Apex Legends will be coming available to Steam. Now, there will be also cross-play between Steam versions and Origin bought ones too. So, for example, all the people who are playing on Battlefield 5, all 600 people of you out there, when it comes to Steam and the numbers quadruple, yeah, you'll be able to play with it. Now, that kind of makes sense given what we're going to talk about now in a second, because you'll see why there's cross-play, if you will. Now, EA Access is also coming next year at some point. If you don't know what EA Access is, that's yet another fucking subscription service that will give you access to the huge amount of games that are already included in what they call the Vault on EA Access. It's a bunch of their current and old, retro, old school, this generation, last generation games and whatnot too, as well as all sorts of other stuff and all too. So even if you do get EA Access on Steam, or through Steam I should say, you will be able to access all of that stuff via Origin and whatnot too. Now, interestingly enough, EA have come out, and because naturally everyone's pointing and laughing at them coming crawling back to Lord Gaben, but they've also put out a statement that yeah, they're also open to bringing their games to Epic Game Store. So hint, hint. They're just saying, hey, Epic, why not give us lots of money? Yeah, fucking desperate cunts. But the reason why all of this works, the reason it's not as clear cut and it's not as positive as you will in as it seems, because all of these things, the being able to cross play, being able to use all EA access and all that stuff, all of this is because you have to link your Origin account to your Steam account. Now, to be honest, when I read that they were coming back to Steam, I absolutely expected this. Absolutely. Before I got in and read the details and the announcement and whatnot, well, you'd see the headline and instantly it is in my mind, okay, they're coming back to Steam. You're going to have to link your account. Now, this is the same kind of thing with Ubisoft when they crawled back as well. So basically what happens if you buy Ubisoft games now, or at least new ones, post crawling back, they would automatically launch Uplay. If you open them in Steam and you had your account linked, it would open Uplay and do that. So you're still buying them on Steam, you're still launching them through Steam, but when you open it on Steam, it automatically opens Uplay in the background and boots your game. It's the same way with this. If you buy an EA game or whatever on there, when you boot your EA game, it will open up Origin in the background and it will just run the game, which makes perfect sense, which is why crossplay and stuff would work, because you're still, even though you're buying it on Steam, you're still playing it through Origin, if that makes sense. That's why Origin boots in the background, because you're still playing on the same servers, and that's how you get access to all the EA Vault stuff and all as well. What do I think it is? There's a couple of people out there who think this is an awful idea just because they're not technically fully on Steam, because when you boot them, you still do open up Origin in the background, even though I guess it is technically an extra layer, but if it's going to affect your computer in any way, you probably shouldn't be playing these games in the first place. But overall, I think stuff like this is a good idea. Mainly because it's better for all of the... I've always said that the companies, no matter if they're a third party or whatever, if they're available everywhere, it doesn't cause a problem. For example, EA stuff. Now, I was never really fully against Origin, mainly because EA would only... They're selling their own games on Origin. I have no problem with that. It's like Rockstar. I have no problem with them selling their own games on the Rockstar launcher. So EA weren't going out and buying timed exclusivity of third-party games away from Steam or anyone else. So I never really had a problem with that practice in general. So the fact that they're making their games available in more than one place, I don't see a negative to that, really. It would be like, for example, if EA were to say, okay, we're not bringing our games to Steam, but we're bringing them to the Bethesda launcher, we're bringing them to the Rockstar launcher, we're bringing them to Uplay, and we're bringing them to whatever it is, I would still agree with that, because they're still bringing them to more platforms and more digital storefronts and all, as long as there's no shady, underhanded, timed exclusivity deals and all too, but making it available for everyone in other places is always good. So I can't really fault them on that side of it. But we'll move on to our next one anyway, our next little topic, which is sticking with EA. This one is arguably a slight positive one. Oh my god, EA, positive news. Q, what is going on? Well, EA have kind of done a 180 on an old comment they've said, and it's something that they've only ever really dabbled in once or twice. In fact, I can only think of one time off the top of my head, without actually looking it up or anything like that, where they've gone against their original stance, if you will. Remasters. Now, when you look at remasters this generation, they've been far, far too many. Mainly because a lot of the games ran like absolute dirt on 360. In fact, many of them still run like absolute dirt, because you remaster a game and play it in 30 frames per second, get the fuck out of here. But anyway, back to what I'm talking about here. EA were never big on remasters, believe it or not. If you look at their entire library, off the top of my head, I can only think of one remaster that EA have put out from the previous gen onto the current gen. That one is it Burnout Paradise? I think it's Burnout Paradise. That's the only one they've done, and strangely enough, EA have a big library of games, many of which fans would love a remaster of. And even though, I suppose Command & Conquer remaster as well, actually. And even though I don't buy EA games anymore, I can still point to one or two of them that would say, okay, this would do as a great remaster. This would be great. I would gladly pirate this game if they remastered it. So yeah, EA have announced that they're open and they're planning on remastering fan favorite franchises. We've already said that there's already an existing one out there with one of the Burnout games. There's Command and Conquer, which is upcoming as well. But there's a couple of ones that are obvious out there. Things like Dragon Age, Mass Effect, Need for Speed, other Burnout games, and Dead Space are some obvious choices and obvious candidates when it comes to remasters. But I want to pose the question to everyone else. What type of obscure or older things, older EA games, older EA franchises and all, would you like to see remastered? Now, not full remakes or anything, because I would just throw out something like Haunting starring Poltergeist, because that's technically an EA game. It's probably my favorite Mega Drive game, but that's an EA game. So unless they completely remade that, or remastered just wouldn't work. But what other kind of stuff would you have out there? Is Army of Two? You've old Medal of Honor games. Allied Assault, maybe. My favorite World War II FPS game ever. That's right, an EA one. Madness. What about Black? Many people loved Black. I can't remember playing it for the life of me. I played it once. I can't remember if I finished it, but I just don't really remember much of it. I can't remember anything about it. I don't even remember what it's about. Or what about something, because EA even still own the rights to Black and White. Great old PC game that got no proper updated digital version or digital release or anything like that. So unless you pirated or own the original discs, you're shit out of luck. Let me know anyway what kind of ones, obscure fan favorite stuff, because we'll all say Mass Effect, we'll all say Dragon Age, we'll all say Dead Space, we'll all say that kind of stuff. So that's an interesting one if you ask me. That's good sustenance. Now, this one, Woolad. This one. I don't know what I'm going to say about this one. I have no notes on this whatsoever. I have literally just a topic name. Probably not going to be a big topic. I'm probably going to talk about it for maybe 1 or 2 minutes, because it's a very succinct point. And you'll see now in a minute. You've probably heard about the Deadspin thing going on at the moment. Deadspin, if you don't know what it is a blog website run by whoever owns the whole Kotaku conglomerate at the moment. Used to be Gawker till they got leg dropped by Hulk Hogan, and well, they shut down Gawker, fired everyone who was working at Gawker, and yeah, fun stuff. So a lot of people were getting laid off from Gawker and all nowadays. Not from Gawker, I'm sorry, from Deadspin. Deadspin, if you don't know, is primarily a sports-based website, sports-based blog, I'm sorry, because they're not real journalists, they're just bloggers. It even says so on the bottom of their website, that this is a blog and these are bloggers and not journalists. So, the big thing is games journalism. We all know it's one of the biggest laughable professions, and everyone in the industry is an absolute fucking joke. But, in the case of this, even though this is a sports-based one. Q, what are you doing talking about sports? But we're just going all over the place on this one. So, a bunch of the people were getting fired from Deadspin. Now, of course, you have, because all the other games journalists from different websites, from other branches of the Deadspin family and all too, because they all know that their careers and their days are numbered and their careers are a joke and they're basically easily replaceable by, hell, even people on YouTube. They've been naturally coming to their defense. Their defense. And they've been doing it in such a weird way. They're playing the victim as usual, as they always do. They're the elitist victim, which makes no sense to me whatsoever. But I'm going to break it down for you into basically what's happened. These people were hired to write about sports. They started writing opinion pieces with all their political beliefs, their political biases, all of this that had nothing to do with sports. They were asked by their editors, by the people in charge and all, to stop doing this because you were hired to write about sports. Please write about sports. They refused and were fired. Why were they fired? Because they weren't doing their fucking job they were hired for. That's it. No sympathy for them whatsoever. This has nothing to do with, because Deadspin is a sports-based website. Again, I have no use for Deadspin whatsoever, and I'm not just rallying against them because they're the part of the Kotaku family. But in all fairness, I do hope Kotaku go under as well. Their social justice warrior blog Taku is the biggest and worst website out there. Biggest fucking joke, if you will. But I don't know why people are upset about this. Again, the only reason I can think of that anyone is upset about this in any way, shape, or form is the rest of the industry. They know their days are numbered. They know they're a joke. They know their profession is laughable and easily replaceable in any way, shape, or form, and is basically irrelevant. They know that by the fact that they do the same stuff, they're fucked. Rightfully so. If you go to a games website, I'm going to use Kotaku as the example here. If you go to Kotaku to read about games and get opinion pieces about political stuff and gender bias and fucking all sorts of bias that they inject into every fucking article, those people should be fired. Absolutely. Stick to your fucking job. It's a joke. And it's going to kill me to say this, right? Because credit where credit is due. But it absolutely kills me to say this. But I'm going to say it anyway because in the interest of fairness. I absolutely despise Kotaku. No one will debate me on that because it's an absolute joke, or I won't deny it or anything like that. I will say there is one person at Kotaku that does a fraction of his work is quality. While I don't agree with it, or while I don't read it, I should say. I know what's his name, Jason Schreiber, whatever his name is. He does a small bit of proper, real investigative journalism, and I commend him for that 5% of his work. But everything else he does is bullshit. Now, I'm not just singling him out because, he's the only one that actually does any proper journalism, if you will. But again, only in a very small fraction of his work. But I will give him credit for that. A lot of the work he's done in that has been very in-depth and detailed and proper investigative journalism. But 95% of his work is all the bullshit biased stuff that we get on pretty much everywhere. Which is why these fuckers need to be shut down. And why these fuckers should just go away. But of course, you know what's going to happen, don't you? If, let's say, Deadspin and the whole family, including Kotaku, were to go under, well, because it's such an incestuous industry, they're just going to go somewhere else and peddle their same SJW agenda bullshit. So, eventually, they'll all go under. Rightfully so. And then, the consumers win. Because we don't have to listen to their fucking bullshit. Speaking of fucking bullshit. Wow, that last one went on for a little bit longer than I planned. But hey, no notes for the win, eh? But yes, speaking of fucking bullshit. We're circling back, swirling the drain. We've come full circle, done one whole clockwise, counterclockwise, depending on the hemisphere that you live in, rotation. And we're back to Fallout 76. And this time, Fallout 76 isn't fucking people. It's getting fucked. Because Fallout 76 are being forced by law to offer refunds in Australia. There's a new ruling by the Australian the Australian Competition and Consumer Rights Commission. And they have found that Bethesda willfully and knowingly misled and deceived customers in relation to the quality, service, and status, and content, and ability, and whatever you want of their game, in which is Fallout 76. So, anyone who complained and wanted and requested a refund between November 24th, 2018 and June 1st, 2019 is eligible for a refund. Now, this is an overall win for consumers, not just because Fallout 76 is a fucking joke and Bethesda should be ashamed and they should be fined and forced to refund everything. But of course, if a company puts out a bullshit, subpar, non-working, bare bones, stripped down product and constantly, consistently fucks everyone over for it, they should be held accountable. Australia, of all places, a place that still bans games for their content even after fucking decades of fighting for an adult rating, and they got it, they still ban games based on their content. Them, of all people, are making this happen. Or at least they're helping it happen. We've all know that places have done it worldwide, such as the Steam refund clause, some of the other companies with their refund clauses and whatnot too. So, that's pretty good. That's pretty interesting that that's going to happen. Now, this next story came up, happened, was announced, was whatever, and then it was debunked. It was a mistake, there was an error and whatnot too. But I want to talk about it anyway because of the potential that it could happen and why and what it could do. Because apparently this has happened in certain fields, if you will. So, real quick, remember that this next topic, even if I use the wrong terminology and by accidentally saying it's active or whatever, just remember it's not. But you see what I mean, okay? Because I didn't amend my notes to do so. But we're looking at retro collecting and the used game market. Now, I know that really I'm kind of out of this for about a year now. I believe my last proper retro game purchase was the end of November, start of December of last year, with the exception of the PVM I just bought recently. But getting back into collecting probably March of next year. But anyway, back to the point here. So, Amazon were required, they changed a policy to require any game with Nintendo listed as the producer of the software or the product or the hardware, which includes, first party games, consoles, and even select other games as well, to be approved, pre-approved or approved elsewhere in order to sell the game as used or collectible through Amazon. Now, there were no details on the process to do this, nor does it tell you what you need or how to do it or anything. Basically, they're just saying you need to have it approved, and that's it. They say, go get it approved. What do you need? Who do you go to? Where do you go to about it anyway? Now, this is not new exactly, because apparently this happens for specific markets of DVDs and Apple stuff on Amazon. This is all related to Amazon in America. So apparently it has to work for Apple stuff as well as DVDs in the US. So this isn't a brand new thing. This isn't a Nintendo specific thing. And remember, again, I do want to reiterate and stress that originally this was sent out to third-party sellers through Amazon, that they would need to do all of this. But then it was clarified and sent out again the next day or a day or two later, whatever it was, to say that this was sent in error. Nothing needs to be pre-approved or approved or anything like that. None of this actually applies. It was a complete error. We don't know if that's true or not, but anyway. So, first off, who the fuck uses Amazon for retro stuff? Like, really? I mean, I could understand retro-related stuff to an extent. Like a new product like the NES Mini or the SNES Mini or the Mega Drive Mini or whatever. But who goes onto Amazon and buys, like, PS2 games or PS1 games or something like that? No, I could understand going on and buying maybe one specific thing here or there. I think over the course of my entire... Well, sometimes I didn't even consider it retro at the time, but I think I've only ever bought, 2, maybe 3 retro games through Amazon. And some of them weren't even retro at the time. I'm talking like buying PS1 games during the PS2 era. So I barely even count that. And the only one I can actually think of is when I bought Persona 4 a little while back, a PS2 copy. I think it was last year, maybe the year before. And I got that through a third-party seller on Amazon. Actually, no, now that I think about it, there was 2 other Shin Megami Tensei games. Digital Devil Saga 1 and 2, I think it was. But yeah, anyway, that's beside my point. The people who go to Amazon for retro stuff is very, very small. Very, very, very small. eBay's the king when it comes to buying retro stuff online and whatnot too. Now, in the cases of these, it's unclear who sets these rulings up. Would it be Amazon? Would it be some sort of trade body? Or would it be Nintendo or Apple or the media companies in the case of DVDs or whatsoever? Personally, I think in the cases like this, if this were to happen properly, it would likely be Nintendo. Mainly because Sony and Microsoft don't have this applied to them in their games and their consoles and anything too. Even their old stuff and their retro stuff. But the big question I always look at is, what's the end game here? Nintendo, we already know, are trying to control their library, legal or otherwise. Their retro library, no matter if it's one generation back or if it's all the way back to the NES, or you could arguably go even further with those little... What was that one AVGN had? The Nintendo 8-in-1 or whatever it was? But stuff like that. Legal, otherwise, ROMs, whatever. Now, we're not signing up for your shitty online peer-to-peer paid Nintendo subscription service. Just fuck off, Nintendo. It's that easy. So, what are they doing with this? Are they trying to combat bootlegs? That I can understand and that I can get behind, because, that's technically completely illegal and whatnot too. But I have a feeling that this isn't the case. I have a feeling if something like this were to happen and were to go forward and be permanent, I think they would just blanket deny and blanket control everything. Just completely. But anyway, regardless, eBay will still be the place to go. But this one, should it happen, would be very, very weird. Very, very weird. Like, do they just want to control the flow of their library going back and forth? Do they not want people playing and buying and selling and trading and whatever their old games at all, unless they can resell them, or not even resell them, unless they can give you them on a subscription service that they can fully 100% control? My money is on Nintendo 100% doing something like that. Wanting to control their entire history, their entire library. Just like that. Push of a button, snap of a finger, click of the subscribe, unsubscribe, whatever it is. That is what I 99% believe it is. But anyway, that's that topic. Next up, we have a woolad big topic. We're going to talk a little bit about BlizzCon. Now, it's nothing to do with BlizzCon itself, but we're going to talk about two of the announcements out of BlizzCon. Now, I will say, in this first one we're going to talk about, half of these notes I have not read. I copy and pasted them because I wanted to essentially react to them live on here. It was bullet points taken from a panel, but we'll get to that anyway. Actually, that's not true. I read two of them because I read the first one when I was copying it because of where you're dragging it. And then I read the bottom one because, again, where you stop dragging it, you're looking at. But anyway, Diablo 4, it exists. It's announced. It's finally going to happen. It was announced at BlizzCon. It was the first big opening. And Jesus, were Blizzard going hard as a please, please, please forgive us for not only last year BlizzCon and Diablo Immortal. What, you people don't have phones? We have two phones. But anyway, just between that and it's like, please forgive us, Hong Kong Incorporated. But anyway, Diablo 4 has been announced for PC, Xbox One, and PS4. Lol, no Switch. Late port, maybe, if you're lucky, people. But anyway, to really reiterate just how desperate they were for all of this. This will go hand in hand with the next one we're going to talk about too. The release date for Diablo 4 doesn't exist. It's just, and I quote, no time soon. So they showed off a little bit. A 9-minute cinematic and about 3 minutes of gameplay. I won't even call it 3 minutes of gameplay because about half of it was in-game cinematics. But a minute and a half of gameplay. Just to try and curry favor with people on this. So what's the deal with it anyway? It's gone back to the grimdark style like Diablo 2, which is great. Loved it because it's not the colorful eye cancer that is WoW. That was Diablo 3. So, because that uses the World of Warcraft style aids of the eyes. So that was brutal anyway. This is where it starts to go downhill. They've confirmed that there will be an always online shared world. Now, the always online part is no surprise because Diablo 3 was always online as well. Hopefully, you know what? I just remembered. This bit I'm going to say is one of the points I'm getting to now in a minute. I was going to say hopefully I can private it up to get rid of the plebeians that I don't want to deal with, I don't want to see, that I don't want to play with or anything like that. But unfortunately, that won't be the case. It's sad to see it go this way. I hate games going the whole online shared world thing a la Destiny. One of the biggest failures and biggest flops and biggest, frankly, franchise insults to gaming history. But now this one is going the same way. The whole wannabe MMO style thing. I'm not a fan of it whatsoever. One step forward by announcing the game and going to the grimdark style again. 2 steps back by fucking everything else up. Now, we'll get to all of these bullet points that we're talking about here anyway. But remember, I've read this first one. I've read this first one, I've read the last one, I haven't read the others, so we'll see how they go. So these were all shared during a Q&A panel about Diablo 4 during BlizzCon after the initial announcement. So because the game is open world and is shared open world, there are no game-wide difficulty levels. Hardcore permadeath mode was mentioned at some point. That's it. Enemy levels scale so that friends can always play together, but some areas are meant to be more difficult than others, so players can seek out more or less challenging enemies depending on where they go. Okay, I get scaling, fair enough. Scaling won't stop you from becoming more powerful by finding better gear, which is kind of good, because when you look at it that way, in Diablo 4 you had all the torment levels, you'd have to play till you got to a certain level or certain item level or certain power level or whatever you wanted, and then you would come out and go up one arbitrary difficulty and work from there and go. But at least this way, with scaling, you can just go and go and go and go. However, games that scale run the risk of always feeling the same if the games don't, or if the weapons, the power, the upgrades, the levels, and most importantly the enemies and the damage of everything, just if it doesn't scale properly. Like for example, if I'm doing 100 damage, if I'm doing 100 DPS against an enemy that has 1,000 health, we'll call it, and then I level up once and it scales and I'm doing 200 DPS and that same enemy is now scaled to have 2,000 health, and that's including my new upgraded items and armor for the next appropriate level. I still feel like my time to kill on an enemy and my damage output versus their health and whatnot is still exactly the same. So it can feel kind of bland and boring that way. If the numbers just scale up and up and up and up and up at the same level, it's scaled poorly. Now, where were we in these notes? Dungeons are private for solo or partied players. It's only in the open world where you'll encounter the public. When entering a dungeon, you can select difficulty options with great granularity. So maybe when you go into a dungeon, it kind of is like Torment. Maybe you can do like Torment 4, enemy HP 150%. You can scale the different stuff, and I don't know, there's not too much details. But with great granularity, leads me to believe that there's multiple scalers or multiple options, and it's very customizable in that regard. Areas relevant to the campaign are private to you or your party when you first enter. Okay. That can change later on, with the world generally changing according to your progression in the campaign. So, I don't know, maybe like a town will burn down or something. To maintain the sense that you're an embattled hero in a desolate environment, player population will change depending on the part of the world you're in. Towns will be the most populous. Well, I mean, they say depending on the part of the world you're in, but when you think about it, if everyone starts playing the game at the same time, you're roughly going, some people will play it a bit more hardcore, some people will play it a bit more casual, and if you're stuck in the middle, no matter what you do, if you go hardcore, you're going to be up there with the same density of the hardcore players. If you play it average like everyone else, you're going to be in the middle, or if you play it a bit more casual, you're going to still fall back. So now I get it, maybe 6 months down the line when it's all endgame stuff, there'll only be like 2 or 3 places that are highly populated and the rest of the world will be completely empty, except for people leveling alts and stuff. But I never got the appeal of that. Where were we? Desolate environment. As you adventure deeper into the wastes, however, you'll encounter other players less frequently. Yeah, well, I just said that. No word on specific numbers. Okay, well, I guess like once you branch off, people will slow down, people will fall behind, whatever. World events will call players together to fight as a group. Oh, look, it's Destiny fucking Fates or whatever. Not Fates. Destiny events, world events, I can't remember. They're fates in Final Fantasy XIV, there you go. To fight as a group, but there's no word on specific player counts for those either. It's important to have a variety of endgame activities. One of them is keyed dungeons. You acquire keys and then use them to turn a dungeon into an endgame dungeon, which can be very difficult. This kind of thing annoys the fuck out of me, mainly because Final Fantasy XIV was absolutely rife with this. Final Fantasy XI was as well in its much later days. Just going into an existing dungeon and cranking the difficulty up does not an endgame dungeon make. That's it. It's just by cranking the difficulty up, the numbers up, and maybe throwing in one extra boss as your endgame boss. No, that annoys the shit out of me. Put in proper endgame stuff. I know they can patch it in and add it down the line too, but that just annoys the fuck out of me. Now, this next one is really cool because even though you could argue it's a small thing, but it really lends immersion to the world, if you will. There are 5 regions, a day and night cycle, and dynamic weather. The day and night cycle and the dynamic weather really appeal to me. 5 regions is kind of a standard when you look at pretty much all of these games. Look at Diablo 3, look at Diablo 2. You go all over the world. You have all these different regions. Everything is vastly different in the different regions too. You can wander where you want, riding mounts to travel long distances. There is no option to disable seeing other players or an offline mode, but you can solo the whole game if you never feel like grouping up. That's all I can say. I don't even like seeing other players in my games. It doesn't build a sense of the world. It doesn't build a sense of immersion or community or anything like that to me. Maybe I'm too old school. Maybe I'm out of touch. Am I out of touch? No. No, it's the children who are wrong. But I don't know. Maybe I just think Diablo 1. I think Diablo 2. Even Diablo 3. As much as that kills me to say. I just think I get in my world. I view them as RPGs the way I want to play them. Or to an extent, multiplayer RPGs the way I want to play them. I want to join up in a game, maybe with my friends, and just us against the world. I want to play a game solo, me against the world. So, I don't want to... I view them as single-player games, essentially. Or, in the case of Diablo 2 and 3, I view them as a single-player game with multiplayer modes. Although Diablo 1 had it as well, I guess. But you see my point. Anyway, my point still stands. Diablo 4 is a long time off. I'm going to buy it. Hopefully it's good. But, well, we'll have to wait and see when no time soon is. But sticking with BlizzCon and whatnot too, we have Overwatch. Or specifically Overwatch 2. Also, I do want to laugh that Switch got Overwatch 1 like 2 days before Overwatch 2 was announced. That's hilarious, late port. But yeah, another BlizzCon announcement despite a couple of leaks beforehand. Overwatch 2 is coming to PC, PS4, Xbox One, and Switch. There's no date like Diablo 4, other than this one is no idea when. So that's pretty strange. But this one is even more strange because Overwatch 2 is going to be really, really weird with how it handles everything. There will be new characters and new content too. They've said that everything is going to be shared between Overwatch 1 and 2, so nobody gets out and nothing is left behind. So it really sounds like it's going to be more of an expansion than a brand new game. But we'll get to that one and how I feel about it now in a minute. So far there's already one new character already announced. He's some Canadian dude. I forget his name. I can't remember it. I wasn't really paying attention because it's Overwatch and I don't care about it. But will he be in both? Will he be available in Overwatch 1 if you don't buy the expansion that is Overwatch 2? Will you be able to see him and play against him and play with people who use him in Overwatch 1 if you don't have Overwatch 2? See, it's going to be so weird. They have said that all cosmetics will transfer over from Overwatch to Overwatch 2. All characters, maps, etc. will also transfer over. All PvP content seems to be free in both games as well. So other than the PvE 4-player story mode, that's right, there's a versus AI 4-player story mode that's going to be included. Why are they charging for this? Have the microtransactions dried up so much and so poorly that they have to find a way to make more money and sell you the game again? It's really, really weird when it comes to Overwatch 2. Are you because of all the stuff is supposedly going to be free, transfer between everything, no one's going to be left behind and whatever. When all the new Overwatch 2 characters come out, can you use them in Overwatch 1 if you don't buy it? Are you literally only paying for the PvE story mode kind of stuff? It's really, really weird. And I don't know how it's going to go. But I don't know if I'll talk about it again because it's more so just the announcement and how it's done really weird. But I mean, I just don't care about Overwatch 2. Unless it's a big milk thing, in which case then I might talk about it again to laugh at it. But, well, I would say it's a big if, but it is Blizzard and it is 2019 going forward. So, well, 2019 and going forward. Anyway, I don't know. Only time will tell. So our last little topic for today is just kind of a small one. It's Pokemon Go related. Now, Pokemon Go finally had its first proper paid event. Now, there have been kind of almost paid events before in it, but they were real world ones. You had the Go festivals and all. You'd have to physically go there in person. So it's basically like buying a ticket to their giant convention, if you will. Now, I didn't really have a problem with that. That makes perfect sense in those ways. But this one was a little bit different. This one for Regigigas was you could buy a specific you could buy a ticket, essentially a pass with real world money, not coins or in-game coins. It had to specifically be real world money. And you could get early access to Regigigas by completing a quest line and whatnot. Now you could get a bunch of other stuff too in there. There was what did they call it? There was a couple of stages in the quest, and you would get extra items. You would get a Sinnoh stone, you would get an Unova stone, you get XP balls, etc. All this stuff. A couple of extra Pokemon and whatnot too. But the big thing is that it locked, temporarily at least, a new mythical Pokemon behind a paywall. Now I said temporarily because later this month actually, Regigigas is coming to EX raids. Now I did an EX raid in New York City earlier today, and it was still Mewtwo with the Shadow Ball. Of course, that was what was expected. It hasn't been announced that Regigigas is coming in what date yet, but it is coming at some point in November, probably right at the end of it. But it opens up a different question. And this one isn't even what if they're going to, put them into their console games, what if they're going to make them worse and whatnot too. But, well, it technically does count as what if they're going to make them worse, because let's look at it this way. What if they start locking Pokemon in general behind paywalls of some sort? That's a problem. That's when, because Nintendo have been getting significantly and progressively more greedy with their mobile games, as evidenced by many of their other mobile games, and this one we have here, this whole pay-to-win early access thing. So that's different in a worrying way. Now, I know I've always said that the day they bring in a Pokemon and truly forever lock him behind a pay-to-win real-world money thing, I am out and I quit the game just like that. I will log out, delete it, and never, ever go back. But that's beside the point. Hopefully that day never comes. Hopefully. We just launched Gen 5 recently, 2 months ago, and Gen 6 is God knows where away. Gen 8 is coming out in 2 weeks in real world games, and so we have a good amount of content going forward. They're fairly slow to add a lot of stuff in, which really annoys me, like when they added Shadow Ball Mewtwo back into EX raids when there was so many other Pokemon they could have put in one of those spaces. They're really drip feeding it. And fuck you, Flower Crown Eevee. Fuck you. But anyway, that's it. That is us done for this week, with the exception of everyone's favorite, everyone's most demanding, the one everyone loves the most. That segment. Yes, you're right. It is that time. It is always Q. What is up? What is going on? What's the deal? What are you playing? What are you doing? Well, this week has been kind of a dry one, really, with the exception of The Outer Worlds, which I finished earlier this week and was playing the shit out of and loved it. Borderlands 3 became available to me. However, as I mentioned in the video earlier this week, I will not be playing Borderlands 3, and it absolutely kills me because I can't play it in an acceptable form for me. I don't want to play a game like Borderlands 3 at high settings to get 60 FPS. No. A game like Borderlands 3, I want to go whole hog, full hard, whatever you want to call it. I want to do it. You can just call me the EA of wanting to play that game because it makes my mass erect. But anyway, what else have we got? Well, other than that, there's been pretty much nothing, with the exception of Luigi's Mansion 3. That's right, Luigi's Mansion 3 arrived yesterday, Saturday. It was kind of strange. But I have thankfully been playing that, and I've enjoyed it so far. There's a couple of small control issues, just because, lad. But overall, it's good. Can't complain too much about it. Just the controls, a little bit of a problem. The frame rate doesn't help, again, because that's where part of the controls actually come in. But overall, it's a good game. I'm looking forward to playing more of it tonight, and I'm looking forward to playing more of it after a little bit. And at some point, hopefully within the next maybe day or two, hopefully, possibly even later tonight, I will be getting a chance to sit down, throw on my Oculus Rift, and play some Keep Talking and No One Explodes. I have a partner ready to set up and play that. He has a nice big 600-page printout about all the books, and we'll see how it goes. I think it's going to be pretty fun. I've been waiting to try it in VR, and, well, this is going to be that try it in VR. Anyway, that is it for episode 31 of our lovely little Quack Experimental Podcast. As always, I want to thank everyone for joining me, hanging out, shooting a shit with me, and making it all the way through this, even though we all know it's worth it, because why wouldn't it be? Anyway, any thoughts, any opinions, any feelings, anything on anything that we talked about in this entire thing, feel free to leave them in the comments section below, as well as anything you feel that might tickle my pickle. And I will promise to take a look at it, and we'll see if I can throw my 2 cents in on it as well. Of course, you can slide into the DMs on Twitter. They are open for many reasons, that being one of them as well. But until then, I want to thank everyone for watching. Feel free to hit the appropriate button to let me know how you did on the video, and while you're at it, why not head on over and hit the subscribe button and even ring the little notification bell so you can see when one of these beautiful, beautiful little highly produced episodes comes out every week. Because naturally, why wouldn't you? Why wouldn't you? Look at you, why wouldn't you? Anyway, until then, peace out everyone, and remember that winners don't play switchboards.